Welcome back to the Untriggered Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Paula Sampson Lawrence, and we are kicking off season 3 with a very special guest, Naomi Nye, a teen mindset coach. On this episode, we discuss how to help teens conquer challenges and build resilience. Let's dive in. So hello, welcome Naomi to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Lovely to have you.
Great to be here.
Yeah, say hello to the listeners and let us know a little bit more about you.
Sure. So my name is Naomi Nye. I'm a mindset and trauma coach that specializes and works with teens. And my company is Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur. And the reason why I decided to work with youth is because of my personal story. I had so many setbacks in my life. And when I got to the point that I had a breakdown, I realized, wow, like, how did I get here? And when I started doing my research and studying and trying to put the pieces back together of my life, I realized, these skills that I'm learning now in my 40s, this is not a luxury. This should be something that should be taught in our schools, and we all should have access to this. And this is why I decided to make my mission youth, because I realized, wow, how great it would be for all of us if we all got these teens, these skills early in life, these tools that we could be able to use to face the challenges that we all face in our life. How much better it would go for all of us, and how much better would the world would be, right?
Yeah.
If we all learned these skills. And so that's why I started my mission, and that's why I do what I do today.
That is amazing. And I'm right there with you because I think the same way. When I think back to when I was young, all the things I didn't know that I wish there was somebody who, obviously our parents, they did the best they knew how to do at the time. But I really wish there was some things that somebody who would have sat me down and said, hey, listen, this is how the world works. This is what you should do, shouldn't do. It would have helped so much, all these life lessons. And I think the earlier we can teach this to our young people, the better. And if you can tell us more about what age were you when you had that breakdown and what was going on for you at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a very troubled childhood. I was born with a club foot. So I've had many surgeries in my life, and I was raised in a very toxic, abusive environment. And so what I did is I focused on work. And so I worked.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point in my life in my late 20s when I started having health issues again with my leg, and I started to have surgeries. And at this point in my life, I'm 31 years old. I have a nightclub. I have a business. I have so much responsibility. I have a partner. I have a life. And I'm thinking, wow, finally, I am on my own. I'm getting to do what I want, live a free life. And then boom, I got hit with all of these surgeries. Again, I had 6 surgeries in a row.
Wow.
And so I didn't realize that I didn't develop these tools that I needed in life. For example, something as simple as when I had these surgeries at the end of 6 surgeries and I had to get back on my feet, I didn't know how. I didn't realize that I didn't have the skills like resilience. I had been okay because I was just functioning. But when something really big happened in my life that literally put everything on hold, I didn't know how to pick back the pieces. And so that is when in my research, I started learning things like self-awareness. I wasn't really aware of this. I wasn't aware of the thoughts that were going on in my head. And this is something very important for young adults today. Like we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and we are not aware of what these thoughts are. All that we are aware is that sometimes it gets too much for us. We don't know how to handle it, and we want to escape. That was where I was most of my life. I didn't have the tools of asking the questions like, Naomi, why are you feeling this way? Or why do you think you're having such a hard time doing this? Maybe it's because you need this, or maybe it's because you need that. I had that inner critic that was saying, you suck. You can't do it. You're broken. You can't fix this. You're broken. And so that was what led me to getting to a point in my life where I even tried to take my own life. And then when I was in that hospital room, in that bed, is for the first time in my life that I started asking myself these questions like, Naomi, what do you want from your life? Like, why are you here? What's going on? That was the first time I had that real look in the mirror that we say, that
Mm.
waking up. And that is when I started doing the research and I started working on myself and developing these skills that now I try to teach. Well, now I
Mhm.
teach others. And because I realized that self awareness, effective communication, resilience,
Yes.
self-regulation was something that I struggled with the most, because that was the thing. I had so much discomfort in my life and I didn't know how to
Hmm.
handle it. I didn't know how to regulate it. And so what did
Yeah.
I do? I do what many young adults do today. I went to drugs, I went to alcohol. There was a point that I even went to psychologists. I was on a bunch of pills, you
Mm.
know? But I wasn't fixing me. I was just putting band-aids on the problem, because
Yeah.
we all know this, that addiction is just a band-aid. You
Hmm.
can drink, and you feel better because, you're more social, you don't feel those little nerves, or you're trying to escape, you drink
Yeah.
because you can't deal with it and you want to forget, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to feel that bad, because all it is we're running away from that discomfort you know
Absolutely.
and so exactly, and so that was my coping mechanism, just
Hmm.
running away,
Hmm.
escaping, running away. But it gets to a point in your life, and this is what I tell young adults, that you're not going to be able to escape, because you might create, like I did. I tried to take my own life. They've been so reckless that now they had to do jail time, or
Yeah.
they've had this terrible divorce, or they've
Hmm.
lost their kids, or they've lost everything, their business. And so that's
Hmm.
why it's so important to teach young adults these skills of how to regulate themselves and how to be able to deal with the challenges, because in essence, that's what life is all about. Because
It is.
if you think about it, when we're good, we're good. When we're happy, there's no problem. So when
Everything's
we're
fine.
happy, we're not looking to escape, we're not looking to fix anything, we're not looking to run away, because it's all good. But
Hmm.
life is not that. Life
No.
is really overcoming challenges, overcoming
Absolutely.
challenges, because
Hmm.
that's what life throws at us. And if the younger we start learning how to deal and handle these challenges and learn the skills to be able to successfully overcome the problems that we can avoid,
Yeah.
because we're going to have some problems, we're going to have disappointments, we're going to
Yeah.
have breakups,
Hmm.
we're going to have failed businesses, we're going to fail college entrance tests, we're going to fail.
Yeah.
But how we handle it, that makes all
Hmm.
the difference in the world.
It really
It
does.
makes all
And that kind of writes your life, really. That ability to bounce back from setbacks is the only way that you can grow, that you can succeed in anything, you know. Um, I wanted to go right back to the fact that teenagers, no matter where they are in the world, they're all living in a very complex and sort of ever-changing world, probably a lot different to when
yes,
we were younger, And I wonder if we can
yeah.
speak to some of the challenges you'd think, like the main things that every teenager, regardless of where you are in the world, what are some of those things that we all struggled with as a young child that teenagers are struggling with now?
Well, mental health is the biggest thing. Teens
Hmm.
right now are suffering with anxiety, stress, and a little bit of hopelessness because of the
Hmm.
economic system. And the anxiety and the stress comes from not being able to control many things in their lives.
Yeah.
And yes, and when you think about it, it's being maximized now because now we have social media. So when I was a
Yeah.
kid, we're social creatures.
Hmm.
So belonging is one of our six basic human needs.
Oh
We all
yes.
need
Yeah.
to feel accepted. We all need to be a part of the group. We all
Hmm.
need to have a tribe, right? That we feel a part of. So acceptance is super important. So here we are as young adults trying to be accepted, right? And and a natural part of life is that we compare ourselves to others. We are
Mm.
comparison creatures, just like we are social creatures. Because if and this is a good thing. We look at it as
Hmm.
bad, but it's a good thing. Why do we compare? Because if we don't compare, how do we know our growth? So if
Hmm.
you're playing basketball and you don't see that your friend is, throwing hoops all the time, then how do you know that you need to be better? How do you know that you need
Mm.
to develop that skill, or that you need to switch it up so that you can get what you want? The thing is that now it's maximized with social media and the internet. So we have teens that are looking online and they're seeing all these amazing lives, and then they're
Hmm.
comparing those lives to them. And
Yeah.
so much more anxiety is coming up,
Yes.
much more stress, right? And the peer pressure to be able to fit in, to be able to succeed and to excel and to stand out is even bigger. And I think that
Hmm.
that's where a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the addiction is coming from. And so that's why I think it's important that we teach our youth. It doesn't matter where you live,
Hmm.
because humans, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
the same inside. This is just a suit, just like the clothes that we're wearing
Hmm.
covers our body. Our body just covers our spirit.
Yeah.
We all have organs and we all bleed inside. We all feel the same struggles and we all have the same needs. It doesn't matter where
Yeah.
you are. It doesn't matter if it's now or 1,000 years ago. If you check out history,
Hmm.
it's the same problems that we as a human race
Hmm.
experience. And so
Yeah.
it's being able to develop those tools to deal with things like we talked about. Like, okay, I have this challenge. So I want to do this, but it feels so hard and I feel
Yeah.
like I can't do it. And fear is the biggest thing that we all have to overcome. And I always say fear is the boogeyman that stands between you and everything that you want. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, I tell young people, your fear is so big that it's going to stop you from doing things.
Yeah.
But the funny thing that when you develop that courage to just jump that, you'll
Hmm.
realize and you'll think, wow, I was so scared and it wasn't that bad.
Hmm.
It really wasn't that bad. So that's why I think it's so important to teach young adults these skills so
Yeah.
that they're able to face life, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. I wanted to go back to what you said about comparison because I mainly work with younger girls, like tween, preteen age girls. And so a big thing with them is comparison because I think girls and women in general, they're always being compared in terms of their looks, body, all that kind of thing. And like you said, comparison doesn't have to be a bad thing if it's driving you to want to achieve greater, to want to do better. The problem comes when you are don't feel worthy already, and then that makes you feel less than. That's when the problem comes in.
Yeah.
And then with social media, you're comparing yourself to something that's not real. It's a highlight reel of all the positivity in that person's day. They could have just had 10 minutes, filmed that, and then cried the rest of the day. You don't know any of that. So you're really comparing apples and oranges. So that's where comparison becomes a problem because by itself, it's like you said, it's not inherently bad if it's pushing you to grow and do better and saying that's the level I need to reach. But if you don't have that worthiness inside you anyway, it's just going to make you feel less than comparing yourself to somebody else.
It does come from self-worth and self-love. And our parents, they do the best they can,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one's given a manual, the most important valuable thing in the world, the human life, and no one's given a manual. No one takes you
Mm-hmm.
to a seminar on how to be a conscious parent or how to be a
Mm-hmm.
nurturing, but no one teaches us. So we're all like just trying to do the best we can,
Yeah.
right? So parents make mistakes, right? So you might come from a home where you're not getting that validation or that
Mm.
nurturing that you need. So now, as a young adult, you're trying to seek it out there, and that's where all the
Yeah.
problems start.
Yeah.
So, what I always tell young adults is to find that self worth and that self love in you. And I know it's a hard process, but
Mm.
figuring out what you're good at, figuring out, you know, how you can improve. And
Mm-hmm.
that's with anything. So it could be with your physical appearance. I used to struggle. You know, uh, in my family, my parents are obsessed with a certain thing, and I'm Latina, and everyone that I knew was like blonde and blue eyed. I was born,
Mm.
in the 80s. I lived in an area where everyone, looked a different way. I had scars in my leg growing up. I was always in crutches. So
Mm.
I always felt a little bit insecure. And that was something that I struggled with my entire life. But what I tell young adults is, you know, only one person can be you. Nobody else can be you but you.
Yeah.
you know that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty. So it's how to feel and be the best that you can inside this costume that you have been
Mm-hmm.
given, right? This life experience. And that is the hardest thing to find, but it's the most important thing to do,
Yeah.
because we spend so much time trying to get the attention, the acceptance, and the validation from others. And then
Yeah.
when we don't get it, we feel worse about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And we feel worthy. But if we manage to learn, right, to figure out, okay, yeah, I might have curly hair. I might
Hmm.
not have straight hair. I might not be 6 feet tall,
Hmm.
or I might be a little overweight right now, but this is me.
Hmm.
Nobody else can be me. How can I be the best me? And comparing yourself in that way, I think is the best way to be able to then start developing that acceptance that you need within yourself. And then
Yeah.
you'll get that acceptance from over there. We start the opposite. We start looking out there for the
Yeah.
solutions, right?
Yeah.
So we want love. So what do? We look for someone to love us. And then
Hmm.
when they don't love us, we feel we're not worthy of love,
Hmm.
right? We want to feel beautiful. We're waiting for someone else to tell us we're beautiful or to make us feel beautiful. When, if we think about it, we can do it all ourselves. That's why, like, teaching youth and giving youth these skills and
Yeah.
actually just developing that self awareness.
So true. I wanted to ask
But
you a couple of things. What age group do you work with? And is it mainly boys, girls, or is it kind of equal?
so I work from 12 to
Hmm.
21 year
Okay.
olds, but majority it has been boys. Um, I guess it's because, boys are a little bit more rebellious and a little bit harder to control.
Yeah.
So moms are like need more help with the
Yeah.
boys.
Well,
But those are the ones that I've been working with the
yeah.
most.
And when you
So,
go in to work with them, what's the main thing that you focus on? Is there something you go in straight with? Is it a mindset thing, or what's your kind of, your go-to, your program?
so my so it depends on one-on-one coaching or group,
Okay.
but the first thing that I do is what I told you. I start with a questionnaire and I start with
Hmm.
questions. And most of my coaching is based on questions because you can't figure out who you are. You can't figure out who
Mm.
you want to be
Yeah.
until you know who you are. And that's what
Yeah.
happens with most of us. That's what happened with
Yeah.
me. I realized in my 40s, wow, after I had that incident, that was the first time I was asking myself these deep
Yeah.
questions, and then I had to put the pieces of my life back together.
Yeah.
So what I do with young adults is I start asking them questions because nobody really asks us questions.
Hmm.
And when you start answering those questions, like, okay, well, let's talk about experiences. So
Hmm.
I break it down into parts. I break it down into relationships. I break it down into career. I break it down into personal goals. I break it
Mm.
down into you, right? So in all of these aspects of your life, which I break it down in 6 different aspects of your life, because when we look at school, it only focuses on career, but we already
Mm.
know that a career is not what's going to make you happy, and usually
No.
it's everything else in your life that you're trying to juggle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So happiness involves much more than just making money
Yeah.
or focusing on a career, right? There's so much that entails a human experience. So when I break it down, I start asking questions and creating scenarios, because a
Hmm.
lot of the time, what happens to most of us is that we go through experiences and we're just trying to get over it. We just want to
Yeah.
get over it. Like
Mm.
like a break. I just want to get over it. I don't even want to
Yeah.
think about her
Yeah.
anymore. He did this to me and that's it. It's closed. But what happens is
Hmm.
create trauma, right? That's how we create these negative patterns of relationships because we don't fix it. We just say, forget you, you did me wrong, and now I'm going to move on. But you know what happens? I always say that a relationship is like a breakup. You open your drawers and you're like, I'm out of here. And you're grabbing all your clothes and you're putting in that suitcase and you're walking out the door. But guess what you took with you too? You took all your trauma, you took all negative
Back to there.
experiences, and you took you with you. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I analyze and I teach them how to evaluate the circumstances in their life so
Hmm.
that they could make better choices in the future. And then the most important thing is that when you give anyone these tools, empowerment
Yeah.
automatically steals,
Yeah.
because you realize, wow, I do have a little bit of control. I just maybe have to set boundaries. Or maybe I have to change this and this and this.
Hmm.
And then that's where the self confidence comes in. And that's where everything starts changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to speak about mindset because with the young girls that I work with, one of the things we really focused on is having a growth mindset because a lot of them have this thing where if something happens, they think that's how it's always going to be. If they can't do something, I can't do it. I'm not going to get any better. And it's having that mindset of, hey, you can get better with things with
Yeah.
practice, and even if you're not good at something now, it's not the end of the world. But the being a young person, there's something about feeling like the thing that's happening now is how it's always going to be, and really getting them to shift their mind into, hey, this issue is just in the present moment. Your future could look completely different. So, what are some of the other mindset shifts that you kind of work with the young people that you are in your program?
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it's being able to teach them how to use that critical thinking ability
Hmm.
and critical thinking skills so that they're able to get themselves not just out of a bad situation, but how they feel about it. Because a
Mm,
lot of times, what we're even trying to escape more than the terrible situation is the feelings afterwards,
yeah,
right? If
yeah,
something bad happened, if we failed at something, then we feel like a failure. And then those are the feelings that we have to deal with. And basically, developing that growth mindset to me is the most important because it's what
yeah.
I lacked. If you think about it, that's what I lacked, that growth mindset to say, Naomi, this is terrible right now. And I know that you've been through terrible circumstances
Mm,
before. You will get through it. And it's the skills of saying, okay, you know what? This is terrible, but what can I do about it today? And a lot of times, I see this when it comes to youth and academics, they're so stressed out about their future. But,
yes,
what we can do to help them is to
yeah,
help them focus on now,
yeah.
and so that's a part of my strategy too. Okay, so this is terrible. I know that you have this expectation, but
Hmm.
what can you do about it today? Let's break it down. Let's
Hmm.
let's break it down. Let's break down this big monster and let's
Hmm.
chop him up in pieces so that we can handle it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So doing stuff like that, just helping them through it, like focus on today and focus on what you can do,
yeah,
that brings a lot of anxiety and relief down because like we were talking about a minute ago, it has to do with the control.
yeah.
We get overwhelmed. We think, oh my God, I can't handle this. I can't handle this situation. I
Hmm.
can't handle this relationship. I can't handle these requirements for college or for whatever.
Yeah.
But when we break it down and when we break down to, okay, let's just focus on today.
Hmm.
What can you do today to fix this and to feel better? And then tomorrow we will address the rest, and it's just
Yeah,
breaking it down.
yeah.
And then the other thing that I would say is a lot of teens have anxiety because, again, the lack of control. This is something that's
Yes.
human, it's innate in all of us,
Hmm.
it gives us anxiety. So, what can we control? Setting goals, you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
is really important because a lot of times we're just going through life and a lot of this anxiety stems from that. So you think, okay, oh, my parents want me to apply for college and they want me to attend this college, and you have all that stress and that stress and that stress
Mm,
and it's eating you up. But
yeah.
when you attack, the monster, when you break it down, then
Hmm.
the stress starts dissipating a little bit. So what can I do now?
Hmm.
Let's set goals. So I'm going to set this goal. You
Yeah.
know, if tomorrow I don't make it, then we could address that then. But it's being able to give them tools so that they feel like they have control now. When you think about depression, depression really is your mind is still living and experiencing the events from the past. And when
Yeah.
you think of anxiety, anxiety is because you're preoccupied and worried about events in the future.
Hmm.
But the past already happened. There's nothing you can
Hmm.
do about that, okay? Except go over it and see what you could do better the next time. But it's
Yeah.
done. You can't go back. And the future is the future. And we're always living in the now. So the
Mm.
future will be the now. Soon, if you're patient enough, the future will come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we worry about it, and 80% of the time, it doesn't happen. But being able to focus on now and what you can do now, and setting goals, for the things that you want to do, will release a lot of that stress and anxiety and pressure that teens feel, and it'll
Yeah.
give them a sense of control, because
Yeah.
that is what we're feeling. We're feeling that we don't have control over things, and that's where anxiety comes in, and that's where the addiction comes in, and all
Hmm.
the other problems come in.
And that's where a lot of the conflict with parents comes in, is that whole, fight for control over the young
Yeah.
person's life as they grow up. I just wanted to touch quickly on what are some of the things that parents can do? What are some of the tips for parents? I think that having a teenager has such a bad rap, as in, oh, you wait till the teenage years, that's when it really starts to get. So it always feels
Yeah.
like something to dread. But teenagers are great. But I think that parents need a bit of guidance, I suppose, to how to tackle their teen, I suppose.
So, to parents that have a teen, the first thing that I would say is, think of where you were young.
Mm,
What we strive for as young adults is independence. So, of
yes.
course, it's natural for your teen to want to rebel and to want to fight you and to want to gain that independence on their own,
Hmm.
right? So, that's the first thing that I would say. And so be able to work with them so that you can slowly go giving them a little bit of that independence, but with love and with boundaries. I feel like
Yes.
that's really important with parents, because I feel like that's the balance we have to find. So a lot of parents are afraid of setting really strong boundaries because their teens react, or their teens get mad at them, and then they start that power struggle,
Hmm.
or you know and I feel that it's really important to set those boundaries, but do it in a nurturing and loving way. And how that looks is, you know okay, so I know that you want to stay on your phone till 12 o'clock at night, but you know that sleep is important. So let me show you this study that showed on sleep and the importance of sleep and how it affects you, and it affects your cognitive abilities when you don't get this amount of time to sleep, especially when it comes to young adults. You add them as a part of the conversation. So now it's not like I'm telling you, turn off your phone at 9 o'clock, it's done.
Mm,
No, it's like, okay, so this is what we're doing. Okay,
yes.
this is what we're going to do. And the reason why we're enforcing this boundary is for your own good, and it's for this. And I'm going to include you in it, right? And we're going to talk
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
then if you ask them questions and you include them in it, that's it, they're yours. Because if you ask them, how do you think, okay, sleeping 8 hours as opposed to sleeping 4 hours is going to help you the next day?
Mm,
And when you include them in that conversation, that's it, you won the battle.
yeah.
Because now it's a we. It's not a you against me, it's a we.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I would say when it comes to parents, and I know it's really hard, because as parents we also have our struggles, we've also
Yeah.
had our own, we have our own challenges. So the next thing that I would say, I want to give you three things. The next
Hmm.
thing that I would say, to always start with something positive and with love, because a
Yeah.
lot of times we come and we're like, you failed your English test again. This is the third time in a row,
Mm,
and we start like that. Well, imagine if you get approached that way, because we forget sometimes as parents. We forget. We do this to our kids, but
yeah.
would you talk that way to your business associate? Would you talk that way to someone else? And we tend to do that with our children.
Mm,
So what I tell parents is to look at this relationship as valuable as any other relationship, and don't think of it as, oh, it's my kid, I provide for him, I'm doing.
mm,
No, think of it as this life that you have, that you get the opportunity to help and nurture so that they could become the best version of themselves, and you get to
yes.
be a part of it. So it's probably the biggest project in your life. Even if they did something terrible, even if they crashed your car,
Yeah.
okay, how are we going to fix it? So when you include the we, and when you look at it that way, like, oh my God, and this is in my personal life. I used to do this
Mm,
too. Like, you did this, now you caused me this problem, now I gotta
yeah.
fix it. You look at it as teamwork, guys. You understand that now we have no car.
Hmm.
What are we gonna do? Oh my God, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And if you're finding it really hard, I work with some moms, what I tell and what I help moms do is to look inside,
Mm.
because a lot of times we have unhealed wounds, we have
Oh,
unhealed
yeah.
trauma, we have needs that weren't met, and we
Yeah.
have expectations.
Hmm.
And now we are putting all of this on our children. And then we're
Mm,
not understanding why our children are reacting a certain way. So our children, to me, are the biggest mirrors that are going to be held to our face,
So
because they
true.
are showing us, they are showing us all the aspects within ourselves that need to be fixed. And so, those are the three things that I would tell parents to, to help them in this parenting journey, and to look at it as, yes, it's something very difficult, but this is the biggest and best project that you're going to have
Mm,
in your entire life. And to look at it as, okay, I am putting this young life into the world, right?
mm.
What do I want them, what do I want to help them to be and help them achieve? And when you start looking at it from this point of view, then it takes away a little bit of the heat
Hmm.
and the triggerness that we feel, and it's, you start looking at it more as like what it is. It's a project. It's a
Yeah.
project. It's a lifelong project. It's never gonna, hopefully it doesn't end till we all
No.
die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you start getting frustrated now, woo, you got a long way to go. So,
Before I let you go, how can our listeners connect with you and find out more about you online?
yes. So I'm everywhere as Naomi Nye and
Hmm.
as Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. Just so you could find me, Naomi Nye. You can find me on all social media as well. And I would love to hear from you guys.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. I can really hear your passion for working with young people. And I just think, that's what we need. We need young people to know that there's people on their side, there's people who want to help them flourish and reach their full potential. So thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.